Hi, as I promised, one of these is in the daytime. I'm actually filming this on Sunday, October 23rd, before the episode airs. I didn't know if I really felt like filming another one of these, only because not a lot of people watched the last reaction video, and I don't kind of blame you because you guys, while I was talking about episode 19, you guys were already watching episode 20 on AMC Plus, and just so you guys are all aware of like how things roll out for me, I I'm not really supposed to tell you. I get an episode at some point beforehand, right? Before the episode airs on AMC Plus, I usually watch it, and then I'm told in the little email that we get that I'm not allowed to review the episode until it airs on TV, and I find that extremely odd because everyone else is talking about that episode online for about a week in advance. Um, and what is to stop me from just saying, well, you guys can send me the episode in advance, you guys can send me the screener, but if I have AMC Plus, what's stopping me from just watching it on there instead and talking about the episode? And I've thought about this for a bit, and I just really haven't been sure how to deal with it. I guess if I really wanted to, I could just film my thoughts on 11/21 right after I filmed this video, and then just talk about it in a way of how I talked about 11/17 and 11/18, right? Where I kind of just talked about overall feelings and emotions, but then maybe I talk about the spoilery version of it the week that it airs on TV. Maybe I'll try that because I want these things to not feel stale. I want them to feel like they are adding to the conversation, to the viewing experience, and I don't want to really waste anyone's time. Um, I don't mind doing these. They feel kind of like video journals after I'm doing some writing, and it's like, well, how are you feeling watching these final episodes? And I got to tell you, I'm going to start this video off a little bit differently because I've kind of just been wondering how everyone else is feeling about watching these final episodes because I've kind of felt like I'm enjoying them, but as I've said before, I just don't really see where this is going. What ending are we working towards? Are we even working towards an ending, or are we just working towards setting off these spin-offs? So I actually just opened up Reddit, uh, one of the Reddit channels where people have been discussing. I'm on the Walking Dead subreddit, where people have been talking about just the early access to what's been lost, and it's just kind of a bummer seeing, there are some people just going, the season is terrible. I just haven't been super engaged this far. A mediocre, somewhat boring episode. Guys, this season is going like season 8 of Game of Thrones. Disappointing. Should have killed Pamela, kept Lance around. That's an interesting point I would really like to come back to. So, I mean, honestly, it seems like a lot of people are just using the words underwhelming, uh, to describe the past few episodes. And I love this one. Just the Commonwealth have the worst security force ever. Uh, I will say that that point when Carol and Daryl do break Lance out of prison, which I feel like is a remix on the comics, right, from when Mercer is broken out of prison. Um, that did feel a little far fetched to me because I mean we have thought about the Commonwealth soldiers as some version of stormtroopers from Star Wars, and obviously as you see my background here, you can see that I love Star Wars. So I mean, if we're thinking of them in those terms, you can think that when they're shooting at Daryl, you're kind of like, how is absolutely every single shot missing Daryl? Like, are these the worst security guards in the world? If they really are a nod to Star Wars, as you know, stormtroopers they just have really bad aim. So I'm going to take it as a nod to that and move on from there. I will say I am glad that on this week's episode, let me just dive into it now because I've kind of just been blabbering. Um, I like that we finally got to see what's happening to more characters. I like that this was an episode that really focused on Carol. centrally because she is, and I've discussed this a few other times. I really think that this show has, in some ways, been Carol's show, and you can watch it through her lens. Now that Rick hasn't been on the show for like 2 seasons, you could go back to the beginning and you could just watch it totally as Carol being the protagonist. So I really love the show focusing on her. Here, I love that she had a little moment where she got to save Daryl, right? Because usually you think that Daryl is this person who doesn't need saving from anything, and she gets a little hero moment where we've known that Carol has been the one to like save this group, right? On her own. We saw that in the little montage in the beginning of this episode. Um, she broke everyone out of Terminus. She saved them that way. I love that there was such a focus on her and Daryl's relationship this episode. And I gotta say, I think one of the main takeaways after watching Sunday's episode, which is season 11, episode 20, What's Been Lost. One of the main takeaways is that it really makes me a bit sad, and I think it's kind of a bummer that we're not getting Carol on this Daryl spinoff as well. As far as we really know, it's not the Carol and Daryl spinoff anymore, and I think that's because you can see how much the show shines when they're together. In an episode, I love that Carol saves Daryl at the beginning of the episode, and then it's kind of bookmarked by this point where Daryl has to come in, and he doesn't have to, but he comes in and he saves Carol and Lance at the episode end. And another point, I'm kind of like skipping all over the place right now, but I loved that moment where Daryl saved Carol and Lance in this episode, because Lance kind of goes like, well, we don't really know if Daryl will show up. Like, I hope he's okay, right? And the entire time that Lance is with Carol, he kind of gives us some backstory on himself and Pamela and why they have that weird sexual tension. And we learned last week also, if you were watching Talking Dead, Lila Robbins, who plays Pamela Milton, gave a little bit of exposition on that backstory, saying what Lance tells us in this episode, that he was supposed to be the family's chauffeur's son, and he was someone who always like idolized and maybe had a little crush on Pamela. And we learned from Lila Robbins on Talking Dead last week that she kind of took advantage of that situation, knowing that Lance had a little thing for her, but kind of just, I guess, I don't even know the right way to explain it, but yeah, kind of just using that to her advantage so that Lance would do whatever she wanted him to do. And Lance, there's this really sad moment where Lance says to Carol basically that he wishes that his relationship with Pamela was the sort of relationship that Carol has with Daryl, where like there's just this understood, there's this thing that's understood between the two of them where they will just do anything for each other, like no questions asked. And he knows that he would do that for Pamela. He would like lay down his life for her, but ultimately he knows that she wouldn't do the same for him. And I thought that was really sad. And when Daryl goes and saves both Carol and Lance, I think you can see that in Lance's face where he was like, wow, it must be not only does he probably think, wow, it must be really nice to have someone in your life who would do this for you, who would just show up for you all the time. But I think that there's probably, and I think you can see it on his face, that he's like in shock, but I think he's also a little sad because he doesn't have someone in his life who can do that for him. And so it made me a bit sad that Lance was killed off in this episode. Actually, I was really bummed that Lance was killed off in this episode. I had gone and I had ranked everyone who I thought was going to probably die this season, and Lance was definitely up there on the list. I felt bad when I spoke with Josh Hamilton before the show came back for its final 8 episodes, and I was talking to Josh I'm trying to remember everyone who was on the call with Josh. I think it was also Aaron, so Ross Marquand and Gabriel, Seth Gilliam, and I was talking to them about like, oh, I can't believe that you guys don't have a spinoff. And Josh Hamilton was like, well, aren't you going to ask me if I'm going to like get a spinoff or something? And I was like, Josh, not for nothing, but I feel like you're not going to make it out of this show alive. And he didn't say anything, but I mean, I was right. That doesn't mean that we can't see Josh again on something like Tales of the Walking Dead. And I should have followed up and asked him something on that. Before I talk about Lance being killed off, I will say, if you were wondering if I spoke with Josh this week for Sunday's episode, I did not. And I kind of kick like I'm kicking myself a little bit for that because I have loved his performance on this show so much. I think Josh really knocked it out of the park with Lance. Not to like get into it too much, but I've just externally I've just been dealing with a lot of weird stress lately, and some anxiety, and I'm kind of even feeling it as I'm filming right now. Not the anxiety part necessarily, but I've just been having like weird shoulder pain, and I thought that maybe some of that was because I've just been taking on way too much lately. So instead of working nonstop for like I don't know how many days in a row, I just decided like maybe I should just take a break because just some of that has been causing me to have a lot of headaches, and I don't really know what's going on. But um, I don't really need to like you know talk about my health or anything, but I've been just trying to take care of myself. I hadn't had like a real 2 day weekend in a few weeks, and I just wanted to try and make sure that I was making sure that I'm okay, so that when we get to like the finale, I'm able to do like everything possible. So end of day, I'm kind of upset that I didn't take the time to speak to Josh, but I was also bummed the other week when I spoke with Teo, and then I don't know, like a lot of people didn't read that interview, and when it comes down to it, a lot of my job becomes, you know, keep writing and keep working on the same topics if people are, reading and are asking for that sort of coverage, and I just haven't been seeing the numbers there, and that kind of factored into my choice, which sucks because I love doing all these things, and I think I put a lot of added pressure on myself. But to go back to just Lance, I don't know. Are we happy with the way that Lance was killed off the show?